Okay, so this video is about how I was able to skip taking the MCAT while still getting my medical degree. So the MCAT is the graduate school entering exam for medical school. Normally people take it sometime during undergrad if they're on the pre-med tract, or at some point after if they decide to take gap years. In the end, you needed to get into any medical school, whether that be for MDs or DOs. Score cutoffs really vary by institution. People will give numbers, but ultimately it's going to be a part of multiple things in your application alongside your undergrad GPA, extracurriculars, and research. The overall consensus from what I've read and heard from my peers is the more prestigious the school is with like the big names will usually end up requiring higher scores or have higher cutoff scores. I'm not sure if there's an actual strict cutoff scores, but I'm sure there's like anecdotal, non-formal ones. Okay, so let's get to the point of this video. How did I do it? So I went through a combined accelerated BA/MD program. Basically, I got into medical school straight from high school. So what they'll have you do is your entire bachelor's in 2 years, and then they have you do medical school in the regular 4 years. The unique thing is you don't have to take the MCAT. There's no testing requirements to continue into the medical school portion of the program as long as you continue to meet the GPA requirements within the program. So to get into these schools, what they're going to look at are things from your high school. So they're going to look at your high school grades, your extracurriculars, and your ACT scores. So after high school, to get my medical degree, it took 6 years. And if you grew up knowing anyone that did their medical school overseas, the concept is going to sound very familiar to you because this is basically how most of the world does it. So you may be wondering, okay, so which of these pathways would work best for me? So I personally am very glad I chose to go through the program. I wasn't aware of how difficult the medical school application process was, basically until I had graduated and I was actually around people who went through the more traditional route. So the traditional route that I'm referring to is the 4 years bachelor, 4 years of medical school, and then taking the MCAT in between. There are multiple combined degree programs throughout North America. I would say that when looking into these, though, don't immediately get attached to a program just because they use words like guaranteed or early admission, because that could mean anything. If you don't want to take the MCAT, you would need to specifically seek out schools that don't have that requirement or don't have a minimum cutoff score, because sometimes these programs just have their students take the MCAT, but it doesn't really matter since they're already accepted into the medical school at this point. So make sure before applying to these programs, figure out what they actually mean by guaranteed, because there are programs that call themselves combined or early admission or guaranteed admission, but you still have to maintain a very competitive GPA, score very well on the MCAT, and do an interview for the medical school, which is basically all the things you would have to do regardless of where you did your pre-med requirements. So these programs are really only good if you truly have no interest in anything but medicine. Because if you have any other passions that you could consider making a career out of, these programs could end up being a waste of time and, very importantly, money. I'm not sure how it works with the other programs, but with my program, we were paying nearly medical school tuition as soon as you start. So in my mind, basically, I had the mindset where like, there's no other option at this point. I can't just switch degrees or change my mind because I knew if I did that, I would be in outstanding debt. It's also much more likely that you would be able to go through the traditional route at a much cheaper cost. A lot of these students who have the ability to get into these types of programs are usually the students who could get a full ride to some college. So you're forfeiting that for a guaranteed medical school admission. So this is a big decision to make at the age of 16, 17, because that's when you're applying. You're basically sacrificing any flexibility during this time period. It's very intense, and you don't get to do the things some of your classmates get to do, like having summers off. The schedules can be very rigid, and you can't just decide to take a light semester because everything's already laid out for you. At that time, I couldn't really see myself doing anything other than medicine, which again is sort of a ridiculous decision to make at a very young age. But doing the program just made sense to me. I can't say for certain I would have been able to withstand the uncertainty of the pre-med tract. I want to say that going through it this way was the easier way, but I don't know because I didn't go through the traditional pathway. But from the outside looking in, it did seem really stressful because there didn't really seem to be any clear curriculum or plan for what the pre-med students needed to do in order to maximize their chances into getting into medical school. For example, I didn't feel the pressure to do research early on because I was already in medical school. So all I had to do was focus on my classes at that point. However, I can see how for someone who values either hobbies, outside interests, or needs the flexibility of taking some time off, these types of programs really wouldn't be suited for them at all. So anyways, that's how I was able to skip taking the MCAT. Let me know if there's anything I forgot to add or something you disagreed with. I would really appreciate the discussion. I hope you guys take care, and I'll see you at our next follow-up visit.